I know this may finish me as an acting ensign, but
Shut up, Wesley.
and since I am finished here, sir, may I point out that
Shut up, Wesley.
So, guys, why is Wesley Crusher of Star Trek The Next Generation, why is he so hated, disliked, loathed, not so popular? You take your pick. I ran a poll on the channel, well over 100 voters now, and the top choice, it was the most disliked characters of Star Trek. The most disliked, the winner is Wesley Crusher, Wil Wheaton's Wesley Crusher. So, why? I mean, you could say, oh, that's kind of a dopey question in one way, but there are elements, and here they are. Let's take a look. The writing, like they say in the theater, television movies, if it's not on the page, it's not on the stage. The writing. And people go right to this, the go-to reason why Wesley Crusher is so hated, is so loved to be hated. Is he loved to be hated? I'll tell you, that's the interesting thing, because for the other day I wanted to watch that Madam Web, which everybody was like, this is such a bomb. And I'm like, oh, maybe it'll be funny because that's love to be hated, right? You love to hate it, because it wasn't. It was just boring. So is Wesley Crusher a love to hate character? I don't think so. But the writing, that is, like they say, if it ain't on the page, it ain't on the stage. So, arguably, and in his defense, maybe in Wil Wheaton's defense in the character, the writing wasn't great, or it was so great, as we know, Wesley became this superboy genius, this super genius. And then he became like a cosmic powered, almost like a mini Q traveler, right? So in the beginning, especially the first season, he kept on saving the ship, kept on saving their butts, Captain Picard's crew's butts. And people were like, this is getting tired. This is really boring and predictable. So, yeah, the writing is definitely a reason, but ain't the whole story. Kids on the Enterprise, right? Children on the Enterprise, the youth element, which in the old series, of course, classic Star Trek with Captain Kirk and Spock, you didn't have kids on the Enterprise. Well, you had Charlie X, maybe some guest stars, of course, but there was no families on the Enterprise. I guess that's the real linchpin. Gene Roddenberry, when he was creating Star Trek The Next Generation, he wanted families on the Enterprise, and that means kids. And, in one way, it's kind of logical to say, well, if you're a husband and a wife, if you have children in your family, you don't want to be months and months or years away from them on Earth or whatever planet you're living on, maybe the Mars colony. So that's all well and good. But by my estimation, and most fans, there were, first of all, kind of far too many, Wesley being the most egregious example and the most, thrown in our face. And so there is an aspect of that. Of course, Dr. Beverly Crusher, his mom, she was always, around saying, well, I want my son Wesley to be there. And that whole connection with Jack Crusher, Picard's friend, and all. So you could argue that Wesley Crusher, Wil Wheaton's character, didn't have a chance because most fans were like, huh? Kids on the Enterprise? That coupled with him always saving the day. So not only was he this super genius, but he was a kid. So what do you think? I don't mind seeing kids in Star Trek, but it's just a little bit too much, a little overboard and overkill. So, and finally, acting or lack thereof, acting talent and lack thereof. Now, look, I'm not saying Wil Wheaton can't act. I think he's an okay actor. I think he actually sure can act. I don't know how well, though. I mean, seriously, Wil Wheaton, during his years on Next Generation, did an okay job. Certainly he acted, but to me, there was never a fire, never a dynamic, a vibe, a real flaming sort of fire. Like, I love that character. You look at, say, Stewart's Picard or Data Spiner, Brent Spiner's Data. There was something about those characters, that dynamic and that vibe and that spark, the magic, which everyone could say, oh, a good actor, bad actor. And then there's just people who kind of transcend. Now, not everyone can be that, of course. Not everyone can be a William Shatner, a Patrick Stewart, an Avery Brooks. Some of the better actors in all of science fiction and Star Trek. So Wil Wheaton, sure, he wasn't given great material, or the material was so great and so overpoweringly ridiculous as a super genius, you could say, well, what would an actor do with that material? Then they sort of toned him down, of course. They made him more normal. And for my money, Wil Wheaton just never nailed it. He just never gave that spark. Now, you could also argue and see his resume and his career after Star Trek, after Next Generation. His most prominent role is playing himself on The Big Bang Theory, that whole joke with Sheldon and all, which is fine. But I don't see him being nominated or winning Emmys or Oscars. And that might sound a little glib and a little too sarcastic, but the dude just never became much of an actor in terms of a resume. Yeah, I think he can act, but it's wanting. And so there's another reason I think that Wesley Crusher never became much popular, or you could say hated. The writing was piss poor or overboard. He was a kid, and as an actor, he just didn't light the universe, the galaxy on fire. So, what do you think? Give us your thoughts. Give us your feedback. What do you think of Wesley Crusher? Maybe you do like him, or maybe you really hate him. I'm like, he's all right. Sometimes I hate the episode he's in. What do you think? Hope you're enjoying. Hope you're subscribing. See you soon.